It was a crisp autumn morning in Paris, the kind of morning when the sunlight spilled lazily over the cobbled streets, casting long shadows from the wrought iron balconies. The air smelled faintly of fresh pastries and roasted coffee, drifting from the little cafes tucked into every corner. The city, as always, was alive, buzzing with the chatter of hurried footsteps and the distant hum of the Seine's waters. Élise Moreau, the daughter of the housemaid at the Grand Château de Cille, Villedieu, had never been a part of this glittering world. Her life had been spent in the quiet corridors, polishing silver, dusting ancient furniture, and making sure the grand estate looked perfect for its wealthy owners, the Beaumont family. Her eyes, however, held a curiosity that no amount of social hierarchy could suppress. She loved art, not just looking at it, but understanding it, feeling the brushstrokes, the soul of the painter, the story behind every canvas. On that particular morning, Élise was helping Madame Beaumont prepare for an upcoming exhibition. The Beaumonts had recently acquired a painting rumored to be the lost masterpiece of one of France's most celebrated 18th-century artists, Henri Duval. The painting depicted a serene countryside scene, a young woman standing beside a river, her dress flowing in the breeze, eyes gazing wistfully toward the horizon. It was captivating, timeless. Élise approached the painting cautiously. She had memorized every detail of Henri Duval's works through countless hours spent in the Louvre and in dusty art books in her small attic. Yet, something about this painting felt off. The colors were too harsh, the lines too rigid, the shadows unnaturally placed. Her pulse quickened. She whispered under her breath, "C'est faux." Madame Beaumont, hearing the faint murmur, turned sharply. "Élise, what did you say?" Élise, her cheeks flushing, straightened. "Madame, forgive me, but I believe the painting is a fake." The room froze. Monsieur Beaumont's laughter, usually booming and confident, died on his lips. The family lawyer, who had been examining the provenance papers, blinked, startled. "Élise," Madame Beaumont said, her voice tight with a mixture of disbelief and irritation, "you are just a child of the household. How can you make such a claim?" "I've studied Duval, Madame," Élise said, her voice trembling but firm. "I know the techniques, the brushwork. This does not match his style. It's wrong." A tense silence followed. Then the butler, Monsieur Lefebvre, cleared his throat. "Perhaps it is best to call an expert. Mademoiselle, you may have a keen eye, but only a trained appraiser can confirm such claims." Élise nodded, though a storm of determination had taken root in her chest. She knew what she had seen, and she could not ignore it. That painting was not what it claimed to be, and she had a feeling that discovering the truth would unravel much more than just a forgery. Later that evening, as the house settled into quiet, Élise returned to the painting alone. The grand hall was dimly lit, with only the faint glow of candlelight reflecting off the gilded frames. She stepped closer, studying every brushstroke, every shadow, every detail. Her fingers hovered just above the canvas as if she could feel the truth through her fingertips. It was then that she noticed something that made her heart skip a beat. Beneath the layers of paint, almost imperceptible, were faint letters scratched into the surface, tiny initials, partially obscured, HD. But they didn't match Henri Duval's signature exactly. Someone had tried to replicate it, but the technique was crude, amateurish. Elise's mind raced. Who could have done this? And why would someone risk forging a masterpiece for the Beaumonts? Her instincts screamed that this was no ordinary forgery. It was a deception tied to secrets far older and darker than she could imagine. That night, sleep eluded her. She lay in her small attic room, the moonlight casting pale shadows across the floorboards. Her mind was consumed by the painting, the faint markings, and the mystery of why. Such a piece existed in the Beaumont collection. Somewhere, hidden within the layers of oil and varnish, was a story someone desperately wanted to keep buried. By morning, Elise had made a decision. She would uncover the truth herself. She would not wait for experts, nor would she allow the Beaumonts to be deceived. And so began a journey that would lead her into the shadowy world of art forgery, betrayal, and secrets that had been hidden for decades. A world far more dangerous than she had ever imagined. The first step, she knew, was to trace the painting's origin, and for that, she would need help. Someone who could navigate the murky paths of Parisian art dealers and private collectors. Someone with knowledge she didn't possess. Yet. Little did Elise know, the moment she started asking questions, the attention she drew would be far more perilous than she anticipated. The journey had begun, and there was no turning back. The next morning, Paris was shrouded in a light mist that softened the edges of the city's grandeur. Elise left the chateau before the household had even begun to stir. Her small satchel was packed with essentials: a notebook, a magnifying glass, a few pencils, and her father's old camera, which she had learned to use in secret. Today, she was no longer the maid's daughter quietly sweeping the floors. Today, she was a detective, an investigator chasing the truth that no one else dared question. Her first stop was the Place du Palais Royal, where some of the most discreet art dealers in Paris kept their shops hidden behind innocuous facades. She had memorized their locations from months of observation while delivering parcels and cleaning for Madame Beaumont. With a deep breath, she stepped into Galerie Duval, a narrow shop filled with centuries of paintings stacked floor to ceiling. The air smelled of linseed oil, dust, and varnish, a scent that stirred something deep within her. "Bonjour," she said timidly to the elderly man behind the counter, whose eyes were sharp despite his age. "Bonjour, mademoiselle," he replied, examining her with curiosity. "You look unusually serious for someone so young." I'm looking for information about a painting," she said, showing him a sketch she had made of the suspicious masterpiece. "It's supposedly by Henri Duval." The man's eyes narrowed. "Ah, Duval. His works are rare and the fakes even rarer. Why would you be interested in such a thing, child?" "My family has it," she said carefully. "But I think it's not real. I need to know if there's a record of it anywhere." The man studied her for a long moment, then sighed. "You have the eyes of an art historian. Very well, come with me." He led her to the back of the shop, where paintings were stacked behind a heavy curtain. He pulled out a thin ledger, yellowed with age. "We track every piece of importance that passes through this city. If this painting exists, it will be here." Elise's heart pounded as she compared her sketch to the entries. Hours seemed to pass in silence, the air thick with anticipation. Finally, her eyes landed on a faint entry, written in hurried script decades ago. "Lost countryside, Duval, provenance uncertain, passed through Marseille, 1943. Her mind raced. Marseille, 1943. That was during the war. Many art pieces had vanished during that time, stolen, traded, or hidden. And the question mark next to Duval's name suggested doubt, suspicion. "Do you know anything about Marseille in 1943? She asked the dealer. His face darkened. "Child, some truths are better left buried. Many works vanished during the occupation. Some were lost, some stolen, and some were deliberately misattributed. Be careful what you dig up." Elise nodded, but her resolve hardened. She could feel the threads of a much larger mystery beginning to unravel. If the painting had passed through Marseille during the war, it was possible it had been stolen from its rightful owner. But who and why? And why had the Beaumonts acquired it without questioning its origins? As she left the shop, a shadow fell across her path. A tall man in a long coat and dark glasses blocked her way. "Mademoiselle Moreau," he said, his voice smooth but with a dangerous undertone. You shouldn't be prying into things you don't understand. Elise's pulse quickened. Who are you? Let's just say, someone who prefers the past to remain buried, he replied. Before she could respond, he vanished into the fog, leaving her alone on the cobbled street, her mind spinning. Léonard Duval, a distant relative of Henri Duval, who had disappeared in 1942 under mysterious circumstances. Some rumors suggested he had tried to protect his family's artworks from Nazi confiscation, hiding them in secret locations. A pattern was emerging. The painting in the Beaumont collection was not just a forgery, it was part of a tangled web of theft, war, and betrayal. Whoever had forged it had tried to erase a history of courage, secrecy, and sacrifice. By nightfall, Elise returned to her attic, her mind restless with the discoveries of the day. She spread out her notes, sketches, and photographs. A realization struck her with the force of a thunderbolt. If she were to uncover the full truth, she would have to go beyond Paris. Marseille awaited, with its sun-bleached streets, shadowed docks, and hidden warehouses. There, perhaps, she would find the trail that could expose not just a fake painting, but a story of wartime bravery and the dark, forces that had tried to bury it forever. Elise closed her eyes for a moment, letting the enormity of what lay ahead sink in. Danger, deception, and a shocking revelation awaited her. But she could not stop. She had already begun unraveling a lie that had endured for decades, and the truth she knew would be far more astonishing than she could imagine. The journey was only beginning, and with every step, the line between art and deceit, between history and mystery, grew thinner. The train to Marseille rattled and hummed through the French countryside, carrying Elise deeper into the unknown. She sat by the window, notebook open, sketching every detail she could recall from the Archives Nationales. The rhythmic clatter of the wheels seemed to echo the thudding of her heart. She wasn't just traveling to another city. She was traveling into the shadows of history, into a world that had been hidden for over half a century. Marseille in late autumn was a mixture of charm and decay. The old port glistened under a gray sky, and the salty breeze carried whispers of the sea mingled with the scents of fish markets and roasting chestnuts. Narrow streets wound like mazes, lined with buildings whose facades were worn but elegant, hiding stories in every creaking shutter and faded sign. Elise made her way toward the old district of Le Panier, where the city's art collectors and antique dealers kept their rarities, tucked away. She had learned from her Parisian contacts that this was where wartime secrets often resurfaced. Her first stop was Maison Delacroix, a gallery renowned for its discreet dealings in rare and sometimes controversial pieces. The bell above the door jingled as she entered, the scent of varnish and old canvas enveloping her. "Bonjour, mademoiselle," greeted a man with sharp features and piercing eyes. "Looking for something special?" Elise carefully presented her sketch of the painting. "I'm trying to trace a piece attributed to Henri Duval. I believe it may be a forgery, and I need information about its past." The man's expression hardened. "You're brave or foolish. People come here asking questions like that, and they don't always leave with answers they like." "I must know," Elise insisted. "It's a matter of truth, not just curiosity." He studied her for a long moment. Then, with a barely perceptible nod, he motioned her toward the back room. "Follow me. But be cautious. Some truths in Marseille are dangerous." The room was dimly lit, filled with crates and canvases stacked from floor to ceiling. Dust motes danced in the streaks of sunlight that filtered through grimy windows. The man pulled out a ledger, much older than the Parisian one, its pages brittle. "During the war, many paintings were moved here from the north, supposedly for safekeeping," he explained. "Some were never returned, others were tampered with." He flipped the pages carefully. "Here, look, Countryside with Woman Duval, 1943, hidden Marseille warehouse. Elise's eyes widened. A warehouse. Hidden. 1943. This confirmed what she had feared. The painting had a wartime origin, and someone had tried to rewrite its history. Follow the docks toward the old industrial district. Look for the warehouse marked with a faded number 17. But be careful. Marseille has changed, but the secrets of 1943 are still alive. As she made her way through winding streets and shadowed alleys, Elise felt the weight of history pressing down on her. Every step brought her closer to uncovering a story that had been silenced, hidden beneath layers of paint, lies, and fear. Finally, she arrived at the warehouse. The building was massive, made of rusting steel and weathered wood, the kind of place that seemed to breathe secrets. She slipped inside, careful to remain in the shadows. The interior was dim, lit by faint shafts of sunlight through cracked windows. Stacks of crates and canvases formed a labyrinth. Her heart pounded as she moved silently, looking for clues, guided by instinct and the faint markings she remembered from the Paris painting. Then she saw it. A canvas leaned against a crate covered in dust, its colors muted by time. Her breath caught as she recognized the brushwork. It was identical to the painting in the Beaumont collection, but something about it was different, more alive, more authentic. Her fingers trembled as she brushed away the dust, revealing a signature. H. Duval, 1941. The truth hit her like a lightning bolt. The painting in the Beaumont collection was indeed a fake, a copy of this original masterpiece that had been hidden for decades. But why? Who had copied it, and why had they risked selling it to the wealthy Beaumonts? A noise behind her made her spin around. In the shadows, a figure watched, silent but menacing. Someone else had been tracking her steps, guarding the secret of the warehouse. "Who are you?" Elise demanded, trying to keep her voice steady. The figure stepped forward, removing a hood to reveal a face partially familiar. From old photographs she had seen in archives, a man connected to wartime art dealings, rumored to have orchestrated thefts and forgeries across France. "You shouldn't be here, little girl," he said, his voice cold. "Some truths are meant to stay buried. Leave now, and no one will be hurt. Stay, and you'll regret it." Elise's heart raced. She had uncovered the proof, but the danger was real. Someone powerful, someone who had lived with this secret for decades, was willing to kill, to protect the lie. And she realized that what she had stumbled upon was more than a forgery. It was a story of war, greed, betrayal, and a family's desperate attempt to rewrite history. She clutched the painting to her chest. There was no turning back. The truth had been found, and it was more shocking than anyone could have imagined.